Hey everyone, so let's talk about color spaces. So, color spaces are basically a profile of what type of colors and how many colors a certain device can actually show. Whether that's a device with like a screen or a printer that's printing out a photo, every device has a different spectrum or amount of colors that it can actually show. So let's talk about these a little bit. Like I said, every electronic device definitely has a color space associated with it. And you might notice that, for instance, if you've ever gone in the menu, like on your TV, you can change what the color looks like and such. And that has to do with whatever color space that particular TV has as well. Now, sRGB is the most commonly used color space, and it is also the one with the least amount of colors. And this is for consistency, whether someone is perhaps viewing a graphic or a photo on an older monitor, an older phone, or a newer one, it's going to look basically the same across all of those different screens. Now, of course, your actual device has a different, can shift in color temperature and such. So if my phone, for instance, is on night mode, a lot of times nowadays, night mode means that the screen is dimmer and maybe a little bit yellower, then it's going to look different than someone else's phone who is on full brightness and such. But that's a whole nother thing. Color and how it represents is really an interesting topic and something that you have to deal with all the time as visual artists. So, again, sRGB has the smallest amount of colors, but it is most widely used for devices. So, all images that you're going to be posting online should be saved in the sRG color space. That also goes for creating things like videos, slideshow videos and such. You'll want to make sure that that's in the sRGB color space so that it is showing the colors you want to show consistently across many different devices. Now, Adobe RGB 1998 does have a wider range of colors than sRGB, and it's often used for photos that will be printed. So if you're going to be having your photos printed by a lab or a company, or you're going to use your own printer, or the printers at school will be using the Adobe RGB 1998 color space. Now, going back to working with printing labs and companies, the best bet really is to always check with them. A lot of these companies have an FAQ, frequently asked questions, part of their website, where it will put this type of information in there, stuff like resolution, color space, size, file types, all of that stuff is important. So it's best to check with them. If you're working with like a bigger company, maybe a professional job, a commercial job, you need to talk to whoever their printer is to see what specifications they require for the print job. Okay, so ProPhoto is a color space with a really wide range of colors, and this is often used by professionals. So basically what happens is you start off working in ProPhoto and you do everything you want with your colors, so you have, complete control. And then you do, have to change the color space to maybe Adobe RGB 1998, maybe sRGB, maybe a whole nother color space for the final product. So what I like to do is I like to work in ProPhoto to make sure that I'm working with the widest amount of colors as possible, and I keep that as my working file. That's my PSD that is full resolution, has all of my layers, and the full color space. Then when I need to get ready, let's say a print file, then I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of my working file, save that, change the name to print file, and in my workflow there, then I will at some point change the color space. If I did want to then use that same image and post it on my social media, then I would save it once again for whatever I usually add the social media to it. I've worked as a social media manager in my career as well, so that's really important. Is it for Instagram? Is it for Twitter? Is it for Facebook? What is it for? So I add that to it, and with that also change the color space to sRGB. Now for your camera, I always recommend shooting in RAW. Now, there are many reasons why you might want to shoot in JPEG, smaller file sizes and such, but you get the most control out of the data that you're of the image when you're shooting in RAW. And a lot of times, I've heard people who are just starting shooting out say, well, I prefer what the JPEGs look like. Well, what happens is when you shoot in JPEG, and this is also the preview you see. Even if you're shooting in RAW, the preview on your camera is going to show you basically a JPEG preview. What it does is it takes a RAW image, but then it adds a preset that's in the camera. And that preset usually involves adding some type of contrast or something like that, maybe some sharpening. And then it compresses the file down, saves it, and then that's the JPEG file you get. Okay, it looks great. It's basically been kind of, pre-edited for you, but what if that pre-editing isn't what you wanted to do? If we're just casually snapping photos, having a fun time or whatever, then yeah, sure, whatever. But if you're doing something professional where you want to actually have full control of everything, if you're going to make a fine art print, you're shooting for a client, whatever it is, you need to have full control. You need to be shooting in RAW. Like, that's just the professional standard right there. Now, going back to color spaces in cameras, most DSLR and mirrorless cameras do let you select between sRGB and Adobe RGB 1998. What I do is I always have my camera set to Adobe RGB 1998 because it has more colors available than sRGB. I like as much as possible, okay? So that's what I recommend. All right, guys, so this was a really simple, a simple overview of color spaces. Color spaces can become a really crazy technical topic. We just need to know some of the basics. Now, I do want you guys to go ahead and watch this video when you're done with this one. It does a really great job of graphically showing you what exactly it means. So if all of this up here that I just said was kind of confusing, this video will probably clear up a lot of that confusion for you. And optional, if you are interested in those crazy technical aspects, here is this explanation by Adobe. It's a link to, I believe it's a PDF, where they really go into the details of how exactly color spaces work. And again, always after you're done watching that video there, go through the study guide questions and make sure that you're getting everything. And, maybe you might want to start jotting these down, before you watch the video so you can kind of look for the answers while you're watching the video. Hint, hint. Okay. In that video, you're also going to get some great skills such as setting up your color settings in Photoshop. So watch the video and you're going to gain a whole lot more knowledge on color spaces and how you can have them work for you.